In 2024, I've decided to do something I've never done before to recharge my life. Solo travel. I flew myself all the way to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam and stayed there for 7 days. If Anthony Bourdain calls Vietnam one of his favorite places on earth, there has to be something magical about it, right? Am I gonna find this magic by end of this trip? Follow along to find out. I am pretty knackered because I took a 1:30 a.m. flight and it was an 8.5-hour flight as well. Since we're here, let's do a quick room tour. Ooh, looks so grand. Looks pretty neat and clean for me. I actually requested them to let me check in 5 hours before the 2 p.m. check-in time, which is the standard check-in time. And they let me with a fee of only 30 Australian dollars. I think that's a pretty good deal. So this Alagon Hotel and Spa also have an outdoor pool upstairs, a rooftop bar, a spa for massage, gym, laundry service, and all of those amazing things. I'm so ready to collapse. See you in a bit. I've booked some tours, but I spent about 2 days just wandering around Ho Chi Minh City. Some must-do activities are get a bloody affordable and nice head and neck massage at a salon. You get this massage while they wash your hair. Very nice. Hide out at the shopping centers when you get too hot ain't a bad idea too. I've been to Vincom Center and Diamond Plaza, but I personally prefer Vincom because I'm all for shopping for local and affordable brands. I'm not really a Gucci kind of gal. While you're at it, practice crossing the roads for as many times as you can. Just walk in a steady pace and look at the drivers while you're crossing. You will be fine. Just don't run or walk backward, alright? When in a scooter city, you must join a scooter tour.
Parallel 17, and in the north was leading by Ho Chi Minh.
I joined a scooter tour so I could visit as many iconic and historical locations in Saigon during my stay. I visited about 9 locations in this 45 hours tour. Monument of Tek Quang Duc, a monk who immolated himself to save the non-Catholics and Buddhists from getting persecuted and killed. Nguyen Tien Tuat Apartment, one of the oldest apartments in Saigon. Tuan Q Plaza, a haunted apartment block used during COVID for quarantine. St. Francis Xavier Church, where Yin persecutor of Buddhists was assassinated. Bin Tay Market, biggest market in Chinatown. Tin Ho Temple, Temple of the Goddess of the Sea. Saigon Post Office, built in 1891 and stands as a classic example of French colonial architecture in Vietnam. Opera House. In 1898, the French decided to build a theater to serve French soldiers during the war in southern Vietnam. Lastly, Saigon City Hall, known as the Ho Chi Minh People's Committee since 1975, designed by French architects and constructed over a 6-year period from 1902 and 1908. Out of all of these places, I think I'm the most impressed with the Tek Quang Duc Monument. I'm not a Buddhist, but I am very, very impressed with what he did for Vietnam back then. He tried to basically kill himself in the slowest way possible to show that he's here for peace, and he did not even point finger to the Catholics, so that was actually very impressive. My second favorite location is definitely the Nguyen Tien Tuat apartment. Pardon my pronunciation, I'm not Vietnamese, so I don't know how to pronounce this properly. It actually reminds me of Hong Kong a lot. It looks like those government housing areas in Hong Kong. I'll show you the picture here. And also the way people live, like those elderlies, like the way they hang out, they look exactly like those elderlies in Hong Kong. So that reminds me a little bit of home as well. That walking tour was quite interesting overall. I'm personally not very much into temple purely because of my religious background. If that's also not your thing, you can let your tour operator know in advance so they can cater it to your own preference as well. I didn't name my channel Curious Nomster for no reason. No good food can ever escape my sight. I've also joined a food tour, a cooking class, and ate loads of street food too. Food tour was so fun. I got to try 9 dishes while being scooted around the city. Cooking class is certainly a must if you're interested to learn more about the Vietnamese culture from culinary. I highly recommend you to wander off to random places or ask locals where they would recommend you to eat. So how do you say it again?
Bánh tráng nướng.
Tráng.
Bánh is pancake, right? Bánh tráng is this one. Bánh tráng is the rice paper.
Okay. That's how I got to try food I haven't tried before, like banh mi chow, bún cha, lemongrass pork, banh court, and so many more. Hello. So why the heck am I here today? In this Mekong Delta trip? Well, I'm not sure. Everyone told me I should be on this trip. I should come to Mekong Delta as part of my Ho Chi Minh City experience. So I'll let you guys know how I go. Mekong Delta is located approximately 183 kilometers southwest of Ho Chi Minh City. It took us roughly 2 hours and a bit to travel by car and boat to Mekong Delta from the city. The Mekong Delta in southern Vietnam is a vast maze of rivers, swamps, and islands, home to floating markets, Khmer pagodas, and villages surrounded by rice paddies. Did you know the Mekong River, which is part of Mekong Delta, runs for approximately 6,300 kilometers through 10 countries in Asia? It is the 3rd longest river in the world. Some of the to-dos in the Mekong Delta are visit one of the many floating markets in the region to sample local fruits and veggies, explore the floating villages that are built on wooden platforms in the middle of the river, and take a boat tour and more. In our Mekong Delta trip, we went to the pagoda, we went to the bee farm. Sorry. A coconut factory and a village where there's a lot of interesting food and boat ride and bike ride as well. I think that whole trip was a little bit rushed, but I think those locations are quite interesting. Would I recommend people to do it as a tourist if you haven't been to Ho Chi Minh City before? I would. It is touristy, but if you haven't done it before and if it is something for you to learn about a new culture, I think you should do it.
They still know the way. They still know orientation.
Knowing the historical significance of Cu Chi Tunnel, I decided to pay it a visit. In order to combat battle supplied American and South Vietnamese forces during the Vietnam War.
This one we call the holding tree trap. It look like the crocodile mouth. Right?
Communist guerrilla troops known as Viet Cong dug tens of thousands of miles of tunnels, including an extensive network running underneath the Cu Chi district northwest of Saigon. Some of the to-dos are crawl through the tunnels, pack a gun and shoot at the shooting range, which I chose not to do. It just felt a bit strange playing with guns in an ex-war zone. I've just finished my Cu Chi Tunnel tour and I dare to say it is the most interesting tours I've been out of my whole trip so far. It has a lot of historical places for you to explore, like tunnels and huts and what people did in the past to survive and how they used to live. And I am actually quite shocked how people used to live to cope with the messy war situation. It wasn't too expensive either, like you can check out the screen for the price as well. I also actually saw a lot of tours which they combine both Cu Chi with the Mekong Delta tour. Would I recommend that instead? I don't think so, because Cu Chi and Mekong Delta, they're at least 2 hours away. And if I thought the Mekong trip was a little bit rushed already, then if you combine it, I think it would be too rushed. If you have enough time, try to separate the Mekong Delta trip with your Cu Chi Tunnel trip. So did this solo trip get me out of my comfort zone? It most certainly did. I'm not Vietnamese. My ethnic background is Chinese, Cantonese to be specific, and obviously I need to deploy Google Translation a lot. One thing though, once you show to the locals that you're willing to have, you know, a nice chat, crack a little bit of jokes, have a little fun with them. With the help of Google Translation, they're actually super friendly, super fun to hang out with. I actually wish I learned more Vietnamese so I can chat to the locals better, like, you know, just to understand how they live and how things are going for them as well. So tip for Elaine for the next Vietnamese trip. Another thing that got me a bit out of my comfort zone would be trying out food on the roadside, like with stools on the ground, and sometimes you don't necessarily see food stored the way we usually do in Western countries, for example, you know, making sure anything that contains meat or dairy or, you know, stuff like that in the fridge, for example. You don't see that necessarily here. But then I was telling myself, if people ate it and felt okay with it and did not get sick, I should give it a try. I mean, I flew all the way here. I'm fine, except for just one instance where I had a little bit of tummy ache, but you know, it could be from the food from a restaurant as well. So other than the language barrier, there are a couple of other little challenges as well. Because I'm a female, there is a certain stigma to female traveling by themselves. Like for example, when I was hanging out at the park, a shoe shine person came up to me and just literally just took my sandals off and started polishing it without me asking him to do it. Like I literally told him it's okay, I don't need it, but he insisted and he just basically forced his way through both of my sandals. I understand that, you know, making a living is difficult, but that wasn't very nice of an experience for me. Another thing is you sort of stand out sometimes because, you know, when you're in tours, people usually travel as a family or in groups, and I guess you get a lot of people who are interested maybe to get to know me, but like maybe not as a friend, but more like, oh, let's see if we can get some romantic opportunity with this lady. I usually just basically chat to them like a dude to a dude, and I'll just say, oh yeah, my husband is pretty cool with that. My husband is from blah blah blah. Would I do solo trips again? Obviously, I think ever since this experience, I'm getting addicted to zigzagging through a city on my own without anyone else's agenda. And initially I thought filming by myself would be a little bit tricky, but thanks to technologies, I think I'm doing okay. It's a little bit more clumsy, but I feel like I can cope, I'm okay. Anthony Bourdain wasn't wrong. Vietnam is quite a magical place for me as well, because I'm in Saigon for the first time. I would say the most magical thing to me for Saigon would be most definitely the food. I'm such a big foodie. I feel like I've only tried maybe like, I don't know, 10% of the food. I wish I've got a big stomach and I need to clone more of me to try all of them in 7 days. I cannot wait to come back. I love this country. Come on. For those who have been to Vietnam, tell me, what's the most magical thing about Vietnam to you? I am interested to hear about it. If you are into travel videos, watch this video next. Bang, 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 bang.